Meanwhile, in Indiana, House Republicans there are pushing bills opposed by organized labor after Democrats finally returned to the State House, ending a 5-week boycott. Indiana Governor Republican Mitch ran the federal budget under former President Bush and is right in the middle of the budget storm back home. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk about those union rules and the conflict over the budget and union jobs in Indiana. How is this going to be resolved?
Peacefully and successfully, Andrea. We don't have a budget problem out here. We've been in the black throughout the recession. We did it by keeping spending over the last 6 years about a third the rate of inflation. And we will pass, we're well on our way to passing another budget with ample rainy day reserves in case the economy turns down again. We did all this without a tax increase, almost the only state to do so. So any debate there, and there were a few amendments accepted from our Democratic colleagues, but they were at the margin. And we'll have an amicable, I think, conclusion to that debate by the end of April.
Well, in neighboring Wisconsin, as you know, there is now increasing disapproval. The polls are showing that people are beginning to turn against what Governor Walker did in rolling back the bargaining rights of the unions. Do you think that this is a warning signal for some other Republicans who have taken tough stands on these issues?
My own view is that result is what matters. We have been through this in Indiana. We had 160 pages of collective bargaining, so-called rules in place when we got here, and it was absolutely the right thing to do to discontinue that practice. You weren't able to serve the public well. It wasn't just a matter of saving money, although we saved hundreds of millions of dollars once freed from those restrictions. It was really a matter of being able to change structure, reorganize government, change personnel practices, change technology, and serve the public in a more efficient and effective way. At the front end of one of these, the consternation undoubtedly can lead to some shifts in public opinion, but if they think what they're doing is right for the taxpayer and right for the citizen, they ought to stay the course, and citizens will reward good results in the end.
Do you think that citizens would reward you if you decided to run for president in 2012?
It's not a matter of reward. I always feel that people running for public office, it should always be about the future. I don't think we elect resumes, and past records maybe are of some value just simply for establishing credibility.
They're a relevant measure, though. If people can judge you by, you say that you think that you're resolving the budget issues fully in Indiana, is that a template for what you can pitch to the rest of the country as a platform if you decide to run? Are you getting closer to that decision?
On the first question, Andrea, I've never taken it on myself to tell any voter what criteria to use, and I'd be happy always. I'm very proud of things we've gotten done here in Indiana. We made a lot of change, and we made mistakes, but for the most part, I think we're a dramatically better state for the things we've done. But I've always felt that, personally, that campaigns for public office ought to be about the future, about specific plans to make life better for everyone. And if I ever did become a candidate again, that's the way I'd conduct myself. And as to timing, I'm going to stay on task here. And if there's still a relevant question when we're done with this legislature, I'll try to answer it then.
You have said that you do not think that social issues should be, part of the package. You said that the economy is really what's driving things. Yet social issues are now being brought into the budget battles on Capitol Hill as riders as part of this debate. Should the Republicans in Washington as well be fighting battles over abortion and things like that right now, instead of looking at budget cuts in a purely economic sense?
I wouldn't say no. All I've ever said about this, and I respect those who see it differently, is that when we get to the real show, not the relatively penny-ante stakes they're playing for now around the debt ceiling, when we get to the real show about downsizing the federal government to something that gives our children a chance at a successful future, at saving the safety net by reforming for the future the unaffordable entitlement programs of today. When we get to 50 caliber issues like that, I just hope that we can gather together and unify people, a large majority that's going to be necessary to do that, and at that point, maybe for a little while, we could agree to disagree on other questions. That's really an expression of my sense of the urgency of our debt problem and the economic stagnation which is contributing to it.
Another issue that has come up is the birther issue. Donald Trump was on the Daily Rundown with Savannah and Chuck today, and he said he embraces that issue as he toys or claims he's toying with whether or not to run. He's getting a lot of play in talking about the birther issue. Do you think that there's any place for that question, the question of President Obama's, whether or not he's a citizen, whether or not he was born here, whether or not he's qualified to be president, whether he was born in the United States? Do you have any questions about that?
I don't. I just think that American people elected President Obama, had a chance to weigh it at the time. I have my differences with the president, but they have nothing to do with things like that. We really ought to be concentrating ourselves, I believe, on the issues of slow growth in our economy and the completely unsustainable debt that we have piled up and are scheduled to pile up. These issues threaten every one of us, regardless of our ethnicity, regardless of our sexual preference, regardless of anything else that divides us. And I really hope that we'll raise them to the fore and, again, let other things slide for now.
Okay, Mitch Daniels, and when you decide, we hope we hear from you when you decide what you're doing in 2012. Thanks so much for joining us today, Governor.
Enjoyed it.